The pub wasn't far away from where he lived, but he'd never been in there before. It was near the tennis club and called Center Court. Champagne and fine wines were all well and good, but he hadn't tasted a decent strong cider in ages. And he'd recently heard that this place made its own, so he decided to try it. He wasn't disappointed, so he tried their lunch menu too. A chopped-up baked potato smothered with chili con carne and topped with sour cream went down a treat. It was about time to leave, and he was wondering if the landlord had some way of getting his draft cider into bottles. It would be the icing on the cake if he could take some away with him. Then there was a noisy commotion from a group of lads across the bar. They looked like rugby players, not the kind of crowd you would expect in here really, and were all laughing, all but one of them. Of all the different ways of dying, he had often thought choking to death must be one of the worst. Not necessarily because of the pain, but more the circumstances where it might occur. Imagine being at your dinner table or in your favorite restaurant. Then suddenly you're dying amongst family and friends, and your last memory is of them all laughing at you. They're smiling and saying things like, "Must have gone down the wrong way," and they slap you on the back. Too late they realize how serious it was. Their laughing will become their last memory as well. By the time he got to their table, the choking guy was starting to turn blue, and the laughter was dying down. They parted and let him through. He was aware you could do the Heimlich maneuver with the victim sitting down, but this guy was huge. He hauled him to his feet and got him in a bear hug, pinning his arms against his sides. He pushed the thumb of one fist just above where he estimated the belly button to be. Grabbing that fist with his other hand, he thrust in and up as hard as he could. For a moment it looked like they were pretending to have intimacy. The victim was a very big man, and nothing came out till the third attempt. It was a large piece of burger bun. The aftermath became a bit embarrassing. He wasn't comfortable with being treated like a hero. The guys all thumped him on the back, continuing even after it began to hurt. Then they stood around looking sheepish, realizing they hadn't had a clue what to do. The big man's name was Sven, which somehow seemed appropriate for such a giant. Phone numbers were swapped, and there was an offer of more cider, politely declined as our hero was driving. He was also offered lifelong thanks, which he accepted with a smile. Sven was looking fine now, but his friends were persuaded to take him to the hospital for a checkup. It was doubtful he'd been done much damage, but he had been without oxygen for a while there. About a week later, Sven called his savior and they met for a drink, just the two of them. The hero didn't really want to go, but thought he might as well get it over and done with. The conversation was mainly along the lines of, "Anything I can ever do for you." And at last, it was all over. It seemed a great idea to start off with. My wife Judy had played a lot of tennis at university and was good enough to represent the county. Now she wanted to take lessons again at the local club. There was always room for improvement, and I could see no reason why she shouldn't. I'm the boss of my own company, and it's doing very well, thank you, so she's never needed to work. And our son Neil is away at college now, so she has plenty of free time on her hands, and I paid for a month's lessons. It would do her good to get out of the house. I'll be going in every Tuesday morning, Colin. They have different entry levels and want to start me off in the intermediate category, but it shouldn't be long before I get to the top level and attract a better quality of coach. Go for it, I said. It'll keep you out of mischief. Now Neil has flown the coop, it would be good for her to develop other interests. I don't know how she could stand the endless round of coffee mornings and hang out with the ladies that lunch. That first Tuesday morning, Judy smelled the coffee brewing and came down to see me off to work. This was a good start. She usually lazed around in bed for far too long. She was wearing a baggy old t-shirt and equally baggy shorts. She looked down at herself. I'm not as fit as I should be, so I'll be sweating buckets for the first few lessons. It's not a fashion show. You look fine. Clearly she'd showered when I got home, but presumably hadn't expended enough energy at the club. That night our lovemaking was wild, well worth the price of a few tennis lessons. Near the end, the head of the bed began thumping against the wall. The noise made me smile, and we collapsed after our joint enjoyment. Judy whispered in my ear, "You need to move the bed farther into the room again. That noise almost puts me off." "Only almost." "I know," I said. "The damn thing keeps creeping back towards the wall. I can't imagine what makes it move so far. I'll see to it tomorrow." Wednesday morning, I fixed the noise problem. It was an old iron bed that once belonged to my granddad. I don't know why I was so attached to it, really. It was an ugly old thing. The culprit making the noise was a brass knob right in the center of the bedhead railing. There was an indentation in the plaster on the wall from all the thumping it had put up with. It was time to do something more permanent than keep pulling it out of harm's way. The knob unscrewed, but that just made it look stupid. Anyway, some other part of the bed would make contact if I left it off. Then I had a brainwave. In the kitchen, I found what I wanted. It was small enough to fit in my hand. There was an inch or so of yellow sponge with a green scourer part on one side. "What do you think, babe?" "What is it?" she asked. "It's one of those things for washing dishes. The rough part is against that brass ball, and the sponge part is squashed up against the wall. It's held in place with sticky tape. Problem solved." "You're an old skinflint. Why don't you just buy a new bed? Get us something more modern. It's not as if we can't afford one. You're rolling in money." "I got rich by not wasting my money. Anyway, I love that bed. My mom was conceived there." "Sorry, but I find that a bit creepy," she answered. "But it's comfortable. And now when we bang it against the wall, it won't make a sound." "Where's the dent gone?" she questioned. "I filled it polyfilla. Want to try the bed out?" "You have to go to work." "I'm the boss. I'm allowed to go in late." We fell onto the bed and made love in relative silence. The sponge worked. Just 1 week of tennis lessons, and Judy was upgraded to the highest student level, and we rebooked her lessons with a different instructor. More expensive, of course. "His name is Edward, and he's only teaching here for the 2 months of summer. Then he's going to Wimbledon, where he'll be the top coach at All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club." "I thought it was just called Wimbledon. I didn't know they played croquet." "Well, you do now." "And is the new outfit because you're a top student? Or is it strictly for the benefit of this Edward bloke?" She was now wearing a thin, tight t-shirt over a seamless sports bra. Her curves were not discernible, but the natural shape of her figure was. The top was not very long and showed her navel. Her shorts were also tiny, not unlike those worn by track and field athletes, except theirs are not usually white. Her physique was evident. "It's not for him, silly. Soon I intend to be their best student. The others will look up to me. I'll be expected to turn out looking more professional than the others." I started to get suspicious the following week when Judy booked Thursday mornings as well. But this extra session was not a club lesson. This was to be private tuition, paid by the hour. Apparently, Thursday was usually the new coach's day off, so he could charge what he liked. The fee was outrageous. He must be making nearly as much money as me. I decided I needed to get a look at this Edward character. Just out of curiosity, you understand. But free as I usually am at work, a problem cropped up on Thursday morning, and it really needed my input. The team and I took over 4 hours to sort it out, so I bought them all a late lunch. Watching Judy's Thursday lesson wouldn't happen now, and there was little point in trying to observe her next Tuesday, as that lesson was not a private one. Observing Edward would have to wait another week. Judy had told me she was booked with him from 9 till 10. No work issues this time, so I took the following Thursday morning off. I went to work as usual, but transferred to one of our company cars. Then I drove to the tennis club and waited outside where I could see the courts. Judy arrived at 8:45 and got out of her car wearing a baggy jogging outfit. She was carrying a large sports bag and went inside to get changed. There were several courts available, and she came back out to the one on my far left. She was prompt at 9 and all in white again, but this was no cropped t-shirt. She had changed into an outfit I'd never seen before. The top part had thin shoulder straps and was almost backless. It was made from thicker material than a t-shirt, but not thick enough to conceal the fact she was no longer wearing a bra. It was doing its best to prevent her body from wobbling about, but not really succeeding. Once she started serving and volleying, she'd be lucky if her figure stayed in there. Even from this distance, I could make out her silhouette. And to match with the top, she'd bought a white pleated skirt which barely covered her tiny white undergarments. As I stared at her, she half turned away from me and bent over to retie a shoelace, showing me everything. I wondered if she did this a lot. And now I changed my mind about her outfit. She might even be wearing a one-piece swimsuit, under a skirt that a ballerina would be proud of. As if my suspicions had not already gone up a couple of notches, I was equally taken aback as her coach arrived. Edward looked like a Greek god. His soft blonde hair fell in cute waves, just covering his ears. Darker designer stubble made me wonder if his head hair was dyed. His skin was well-muscled and golden brown, and his teeth almost flashed when he smiled. And he smiled a lot. If the Greeks had a god of seduction, here he was in the flesh. Judy wore a little lipstick and looked gorgeous. Even scraped back in a ponytail, her dark brown hair looked good flying around in the sunshine. And her slim-toned legs have always caught men's eyes. Even more so today, as she flashed her physique and her appearance started to darken with sweat. There was little chance of her spotting me, but I didn't need to watch the whole lesson. So I went and found the club's entertainment rooms after half an hour or so. There was a good selection of fruit juices and other healthy drinks, but I settled for a coffee and found a complimentary newspaper. I had just started my second cup and was engrossed in an article on corporate finance when I looked at my watch. It was nearly 10:20. I said, "Oh." "Is there a problem?" said a pretty woman sitting at my table. I hadn't even noticed she was there. "No, sorry. I didn't realize it was so late." "Is 10:20 late?" She smiled. Well, it's too long for a post-tennis lesson shower, but she didn't need to know that. We introduced ourselves. Her name was Petra, and we soon got chatting. She told me the club was excited about their new coach, albeit he was only with them temporarily. "It's a pity he's only here for the summer. Come September, he's off to Wimbledon. We're so lucky to have him. I've got an hour with him at 11. "Where is he now?" I asked. "He'll be on one of the courts. I was told the member ahead of me has booked him for 2 hours. I wish I could afford that long." "I'm just a visitor. Thinking of joining," I said. "Could you show me where the lessons take place? If it's no trouble?" We went outside and she started singing the praises of the club and urging me to join. I wondered if she got a finder's fee or commission. I asked her if I could have a look at her membership card and noted its number. "That's strange," she said. "I can't see Edward anywhere. He was out here earlier with a woman in white." "That sounds very Wimbledon," I observed. Actually, her choice of clothes was far too revealing for Wimbledon. She's probably showing off or trying to seduce him. I wonder where she's getting her second hour. So did I. And I wondered exactly what she was learning. How to be a Greek goddess, maybe. Was Edward exploring her private areas, perhaps? "Do you have any indoor courts?" I asked. "Oh, yes, but nobody uses them when the weather's sunny like this. We don't have enough instructors to coach outside and inside at the same time." I thanked her for her time, made my excuses, and left. I soon found the indoor facilities. I was walking down a corridor when suddenly I heard Judy's voice from round a corner. "Same time next week then, Eddie. I can't wait." Before they came into view, I ducked into a toilet and immediately panicked when I found it was the ladies. I heard a second voice, presumably Edward's. "Do I have to wait a whole week? You're the best partner I've had in years. Let's have a private moment in the toilet, Juju." "No, you have another lesson at 11. I'll call you later if I get an opportunity." The door opened and I froze. Judy backed halfway in, kissing him. Their arms were wrapped around each other and her head was between Eddie and me. His eyes were closed, so neither of them spotted me. I retreated to the nearest stall and closed its door quietly. "I really need to show you how to improve your backhand. We must have a match soon. In a proper bed would be best, but I live so far away." "You're a naughty one, Eddie. You've made it very clear what you're after," she replied. "I'll see what I can do." A moment later, the main door banged shut as he left, and Judy entered the stall next to me. I heard a thump and saw her sports bag hit the floor. There was a foot gap beneath the partition. Next thing, she was relieving herself noisily. I crouched down and looked under, and was surprised to see her tennis shoes were still on, and she had bare legs. How could she possibly use the facilities with those tight little undergarments on? Had she undressed in the doorway after I'd hidden? I thought she'd been wearing them when she backed into the ladies, but perhaps Eddie Boy had kept them for his collection. I heard some thorough wiping, and her hand delved into the bag and removed a packet of wet wipes. She stood up and dropped the little white skirt on the floor. And then all became clear. I'd almost been right. The next item of clothing fell next to the skirt. It was effectively the same as a one-piece swimsuit. The difference was this item had fasteners in the middle. It was hanging open indecently and covered in fluids. Edward must have shared quite a lot. Judy opened her bag to its fullest extent and retrieved a pair of plain undergarments and her boring jogging clothes. While she unzipped the lower leg of her trousers and pulled them on, I saw something else in the bag, the tight t-shirt and revealing shorts. Perhaps they were in case I ever looked in there. She fished out a bra and put it and the shirt back on. Finally, she produced a small plastic bag and shoved her soiled tennis outfit in. Naturally, that bag was opaque and was pushed under her tennis rackets. On the way home, I considered my feelings. I didn't really have many. You don't succeed in business by getting all emotional when things go wrong. You work out how to put them right. You take the setbacks, learn what you can from them, and move on. As they say in the mafia movies, business is not the same as personal. I subscribe to that. But when it does become personal, it's serious. I was shocked that Judy was having an affair. Okay, I'm not entirely immune to emotions. I was really angry. A tennis coach, for goodness sake, was nearly as bad as the boss and his secretary. And I was stunned at how quickly she'd got this far with the guy. A couple of weeks and already he was being intimate with her, and they were using lovey-dovey nicknames. She must have taken one look at the golden beauty and thought, "That's a cute-looking guy. I'll be with him." Sure, this sort of thing probably happened to him all the time. But he wasn't going to betray me and go unpunished. And I imagined Judy's enthusiasm was partly because he wasn't going to be around for very long. Well, she wasn't going to be around much longer either. He might never be as wealthy as me, but he would gain a certain amount of fame. I preferred to stay out of the limelight, but maybe Judy was attracted to it. I was also extremely upset at how careless she'd been. She books a 2-hour lesson, takes the first hour out on the tennis courts where all and sundry can see them both, and then just disappears for the second hour. How many other female members are going to wonder where their heartthrob had got to? I was almost as furious at her for getting caught so easily as I was at her being with Eddie. How could she not get caught? She was going to suffer for treating me like an idiot. So was he. Enough. Emotions are there to be controlled. "Oh, you're home early," she said. "Did you have a good session?" I asked. She didn't bat an eyelid. "Great, thanks. He's the best tutor I've ever had." "Are you getting quicker, more accurate?" I asked. "Not especially, but I'm getting stronger, and every move I make is now improved." "Well done. By the way, I have to go up to Birmingham on Thursday. They're holding a big conference. I have to drive there, so I'll leave early. I should be back late Friday. If Thursday is his day off, the afternoon would be perfect for you. And if he lives a long way off, this house would do nicely." "Will it help your business?" she questioned. "Not particularly, but it'll be good for networking. A lot of top companies will be attending, and that's a lot of potential customers to woo, so I'll stay there overnight. You know how these affairs work." I deliberately used the word affair. No reaction. "It's not like a tennis session," I continued. "Nothing happens once the lesson is over. But in the business world, a lot happens when the conference closes. At one event, a major merger was agreed in the bar after the conference. They signed the contract over hotel breakfast. Anyway, I should be back early afternoon on Friday. It may be later if I have a few drinks the night before. You know, if I'm still over the limit for driving next day. That's fine. I'm sure I can find something to entertain me on Thursday night. I don't doubt it for a moment. Next day, I telephoned the club from work, quoting Petra's membership number, to inquire about booking Edward for a private lesson on Thursday. They were sorry, but he was fully booked all morning and wasn't working at all in the afternoon. They probably weren't sure what he'd be doing, but I was. There was an ironclad prenup in place that would leave Judy out in the cold. It had been designed to protect my then-growing business, and that same business owned our house, my house, and its contents, and our cars. So divorce, which was a certainty now, held no fears for me financially. Neither was there any real need for any more proof. I wasn't particularly interested in catching them at it or getting photographs. What I wanted most was to embarrass and scare her, and to hurt him. I was somewhat surprised that Judy had taken such a blatant risk when she had so much to lose. She had a good lifestyle with me, enjoying a nice house and a Porsche Cayman GTS. Okay, she could keep the car, but could she really recreate the rest of the good things with a mere tennis coach? I supposed he would earn a lot in London, but he was only a glorified teacher, not a famous player. Perhaps he came from a wealthy family. Just for a laugh, I looked up the word juju. Perhaps Judy would go blonde. That Thursday I made out I was leaving for Birmingham but drove to work. I put in a couple of hours, swapped cars again, and came back home, parking on the next street. She'd be free after 11. 12, he took one more class. I went into the house and made a few simple preparations and noticed her laptop was open. I idly checked on her recent browsing history. There was nothing about Edward or even tennis. But one search was interesting. Best places to live in London. Yeah, good luck with that. Judy lay on the bed, watching him undress. It was the most beautiful body she'd ever seen, and he said he loved her. His golden skin was covered with tiny blonde hairs, which made him seem to shimmer. His underwear was the last to come off, and she noticed there were no tan lines. He must be sunbathing in private somewhere, or using a sunbed. He was completely groomed, and his body reacted, already half ready. As the moment continued, they grew closer, and Judy could feel the intensity of their connection. "What the heck was that?" said Edward, withdrawing and looking around. A tennis ball bounced from under the bed towards the window. There was something very sinister about it moving with no human intervention. "Goodness!" shouted Judy, pushing him off and sitting up. "It must be Colin. He knows. Get out of here, quick!" She swung her legs off the bed while Edward scrambled upright in a state of panic, and the brass knob on the bed head gave a sad little knock against the wall. "Finished at love all?" I said, leaning against the door jamb. "Colin!" she exclaimed. "Who the heck?" Edward added. I pointed a gun at his face. "Stand up!" Much of his golden skin was turning white. "Stop covering yourself and put your hands behind your head. Do it now." I pointed the gun lower. I followed him downstairs and allowed him to lower his hands to open the front door where I nudged him outside. I'd already locked every other means of entry and exit. Judy had sensibly stayed in the bedroom. I slammed the door and went back up, slipping into Neil's old bedroom for a moment, and then returned to mine. She was sitting on the bed, still completely undressed. I had to admire her composure. "That wasn't a real gun," she said. "You're right. I just put it back in Neil's old toy box. Loverboy was fooled, though. Maybe he had other things on his mind. I notice you didn't tell him. I've never seen you look that angry. I thought it best to keep quiet. You scared me." "Good move. Tell me something. Were you blackmailed?" I questioned. "No, but I would like to explain." "Will explaining make you feel better?" I asked. "Yes," she replied. "Well, I have no motivation to make you feel better. Knowing your reasons will only upset me even more. It's divorce time, Judy. You're out on your ear. Look on the bright side. I'll let you get dressed first." I looked out the bedroom window. A police car had just pulled up and 2 officers were talking to an undressed man. He was holding a plastic bag in front of himself, probably borrowed from a nearby builder's skip. One officer pointed to our house, and Edward shook his head and ducked into the car. They drove off. "You may not be keen on a divorce, you'll lose everything. Interesting you should be online looking for a place to live in London, though. Let me guess. You'd prefer the Wimbledon area if Edie can afford it." "It was just curiosity." "I still love you," she replied. "That's an interesting use of the word love. Were you ever unfaithful to him? Did you ever be with anyone else during your so far brief relationship? The man next door? The barman at the club?" "No, of course I didn't," she replied. "So you were faithful to him, but not to me. That's your definition of love, is it?" I always thought she'd jumped into this affair far too quickly, but she was still full of surprises. Right there and then, Judy jumped straight out of our marriage. She leaped to her feet. "Okay, you win. I love him more. He's beautiful. File for divorce. You'll get everything you want. But I'll get what I deserve. A man who's going to end up richer than you and famous, and he has more to offer." I finally lost it and shouted, "He'll need a lot to offer. You've got some big needs to fill." That wasn't true, of course, but I was livid. "I'll pack my things then, shall I?" she asked. "Your things are in the guest room, already packed." An hour later, I watched her climbing into a taxi. The driver helped stow her baggage. Good word, baggage. I'm getting rid of all mine. As the taxi pulled away, I turned and looked at the bed. I love that bed, but perhaps I need a new mattress now, and a new carpet. The house seemed quiet without her, which was fine by him. She took the rest of her stuff and his clothes. He spent a week rearranging things. Soon the house looked as if no woman had ever lived there. Next month's newspaper had an interesting story splashed across page 3. It was reported that the new coach at the Wimbledon Lawn Tennis Club would not be taking up his post after all. It seemed there had been an unfortunate incident in a nearby car park. He'd been pushed up against a Porsche and had the door slammed on his right arm. It had been broken in 3 places, and doctors said he would never play again. It sounded a lot worse than tennis elbow to me. While he had been trapped, the assailant had scratched something on his other arm. It looked like JoJo. The police were investigating. His phone beeped with a message. "I completed your project on time. Game, set, and match." "Thanks, Sven." And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.